I used to think betrayal would announce itself loudly, shouting, slammed doors, maybe a flying glass. I imagined I'd feel it coming, the way animals sense a storm before the clouds roll in. I was wrong. Betrayal came quietly on a Tuesday evening, while the pasta water boiled over and the house smelled like garlic and detergent. Her name is Elena, my wife, or at least she was my wife that night. When she stood at the kitchen counter with her hands folded, eyes fixed on a chip in the granite like it held the secret of the universe. I remember thinking how tired she looked. I remember thinking I should ask if she was okay. I remember thinking we'd finally gotten through the worst of things. We'd been married 8 years. Together for 11, long enough to know each other's rhythms. The way she hummed when she cleaned. The way I always forgot to put the cap back on the toothpaste. Long enough to survive job losses. A miscarriage we never really talked about. And my father's death. Long enough to believe that whatever cracks existed, they weren't fatal. I turned off the stove and wiped my hands on a towel. "You said you needed to talk," I said. "What's going on?" She didn't answer right away. She took a breath, slow, deliberate. The kind of breath people take when they're about to step off a ledge and want to make sure someone's watching. "I'm pregnant," she said. For a moment, the world tilted. Not in a bad way, pregnant. The word echoed in my head, soft and warm. My heart jumped, hopeful despite everything. We hadn't been trying, not officially, but we hadn't been preventing it either. After the miscarriage, we'd learned not to plan too loudly. I smiled. I actually smiled. "Elena," I said, stepping toward her. Are you serious?" She finally looked up. And that's when I knew something was wrong. There was no smile on her face. No relief, no nervous excitement. Just a tightness around her mouth. A distance in her eyes that felt like standing on opposite sides of a river. "Yes," she said. "I'm serious." I waited. My smile faltered. "Okay," I said slowly. "So, why do you look like you're about to tell me someone died?" Her jaw clenched. She looked past me, toward the hallway, toward the front door. "Anywhere but my face." "It's not yours," she said. The words hit me like a slap. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just sudden and sharp and disorienting. "I'm sorry, what?" I said. She swallowed. "The baby." "It's not yours." I laughed. I couldn't help it. A short, disbelieving sound. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," she said. The room felt smaller. The air thicker. I felt like I needed to sit down, but my legs wouldn't move. "Then whose is it?" I asked, already dreading the answer, already knowing it would hurt no matter what name she said. She hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Long enough to be cruel. "Your brother's," she said. There it was. The storm. The lightning strike I never saw coming. My brother Daniel. My younger brother by 3 years. The golden one. The one who never struggled the way I did. Never had to scrape and claw for every inch. The one my parents compared me to without even realizing it. The one everyone said was naturally confident. A born leader. Charismatic. I stared at her. "You're lying," I said. "This is a joke." A sick joke. She shook her head. "I'm not lying." I felt something tear inside my chest, slow and ugly. "How long?" I asked. She pressed her lips together. "A few months." "A few months?" I repeated. The words tasted bitter. So this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't one night. "No," she said quietly. I thought of family dinners, holidays, Daniel sitting across from me at Thanksgiving, passing the mashed potatoes, asking about work. I thought of the time he stayed over when his apartment flooded. The 3 of us laughing over cheap beer on the couch. I thought of all the moments that replayed now with a different soundtrack. "Why?" I asked. She exhaled sharply like she'd been waiting for that question, like she had an answer ready. "I felt invisible," she said. "I felt like I was married to a ghost." I flinched. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" She snapped. "You're always tired, always distracted, always working on something. You stopped seeing me." I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because some of it was true. I had worked a lot. I had been tired. But I'd thought we were in it together. I'd thought we were surviving, not drifting. "So you slept with my brother?" I said. "That was the solution?" She crossed her arms, defensive. "It wasn't planned." I laughed again, harsher this time. "But you kept doing it." She didn't deny it. And now you're pregnant, I said. And you decided to tell me because… What? You want a medal for honesty? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and her eyes hardened. I expect you to step up. The words didn't register at first. Step up? Yes, she said. We're married. This is still our family. The baby didn't ask for this. My head spun. You want me to raise my brother's child? I want you to be a man about it, she said. Something snapped. A man? She nodded. Daniel is more of a man than you ever were. At least he knows how to make me feel wanted. The insult landed with surgical precision. She knew exactly where to cut. For a moment I saw red. I imagined yelling, breaking something, demanding explanations I already had. I imagined calling Daniel and screaming into the phone until my voice gave out. Instead, something else happened. Everything went quiet. The anger drained away, replaced by a cold, hollow calm. Like standing in the aftermath of an explosion, ears ringing, debris settling. I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman I'd built a life with, the woman who now stood in front of me, carrying my brother's child and telling me I wasn't enough. I need you to understand, she continued, mistaking my silence for acceptance. This doesn't have to change everything. We can work through it. I nodded slowly. Not because I agreed, because I didn't trust my voice. You expect me to forgive you, I said. To forgive him? Yes, she said. For the sake of the family. I thought of my parents. My mother's smile. My father's voice telling us to look out for each other. I thought of the word family and how easily people used it as a weapon. I picked up my jacket from the chair. Where are you going? She asked, suddenly uneasy. I need air, I said. This isn't something you can just walk away from, she said. I paused at the door. For a second, I considered saying something, anything. A promise, a threat, a goodbye. Instead, I opened the door. I'll be back later, I said. She watched me leave, confusion flickering across her face. Like she'd expected resistance, negotiation, tears. She didn't get any of that. The night air hit me like a wave. Cold, clean, real. I walked. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't be in that house anymore. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Daniel, of all people. Hey man, you good? Haven't heard from you in a while. I stopped under a streetlight and stared at the screen. For the first time since Elena spoke those words, I felt something solid take shape inside me. Not rage. Resolve. Because while she thought this was the end of a conversation, I knew it was only the beginning of a reckoning no one saw coming. I didn't go far that night. I walked until the neighborhood thinned out, until the houses stopped, looking like versions of my own, and started feeling unfamiliar enough that I could breathe again. I ended up in a 24-hour diner on the edge of town. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that make everyone look slightly unreal. I sat there for hours with a mug of coffee I never finished, replaying Elena's words over and over like a song I couldn't turn off. It's your brother's. Be a man about it. He's more of a man than you. Each sentence landed differently the second, third, 10th time. The shock dulled, but something colder took its place. Understanding. Not acceptance. Never. That but clarity. The kind that hurts because it strips away excuses. At some point after midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Elena. Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just disappear. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her. Because I knew if I spoke, I'd say something irreversible, and I wanted control. For the first time in months, maybe years, I wanted to choose my next move instead of reacting to hers. I paid the check and drove aimlessly, ending up at my parents' old house without meaning to. They'd moved to Florida after my dad retired. But the place was still empty, still technically ours until it sold. I had a key, I always had. The house smelled like dust and memories. I slept on the couch without turning on the lights. My jacket still on, shoes kicked off near the door. When I woke up, sunlight spilled across the living room floor, and for a split second I forgot everything. Then it all came rushing back. I checked my phone. 12 missed calls, 8 texts, 3 voicemails. All from Elena, 1 from my mother. Call me when you wake up, Mom had written. Your brother stopped by last night. He looked shaken. That word stuck with me. Shaken. So Elena had talked. Of course she had. I showered, changed into clean clothes I found in an old drawer, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the wall clock. Every tick felt louder than the last. I thought about what Daniel might be telling people. About what version of the story would reach my parents first. About how quickly truth gets bent when fear enters the room. By noon, I couldn't avoid it anymore. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. "Where have you been?" "I needed space," I said. There was a pause. "Daniel told us something last night." "I figured," I said. "He said you and Elena are having problems." She continued carefully. "That she's pregnant." "That you didn't take it well." I closed my eyes. "Did he mention whose baby it is?" Silence. "Mom," I said. "Did he?" Her voice softened. "He said there was a mistake. That feelings got involved." I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. "Feelings?" "He's very upset," she said. "He feels terrible." "Does he?" I asked. "Because he slept with my wife for months." "Please don't talk like that," she said. "You know Daniel isn't like that." There it was. The reflex. The instinctive defense. "I know exactly what he's like," I said. "I just didn't want to believe it." She sighed. "Come over tonight. We should talk as a family." "A family?" I repeated. "Sure, I'll come." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time staring at the empty house. This place had once been the center of everything. Sunday dinners, birthdays, arguments that ended in laughter. Now it felt like neutral ground, safe enough to think, distant enough to plan. I didn't go home right away. I drove past my house once, slow enough to see Elena's car in the driveway. The curtains in the living room shifted. She was watching for me. I kept driving. Instead, I went to work. My boss raised an eyebrow when I walked in late, but didn't say anything. I sat at my desk pretending to answer emails, though the words blurred together. Around mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. "We need to talk, please." I stared at the message. A few months ago, I would have replied immediately. Would have tried to smooth things over, keep the peace. That instinct felt foreign now. "Tonight," I typed back. "At Mom and Dad's." The dots appeared almost instantly. Okay. That single word carried more weight than it should have. When I finally went home, Elena was waiting in the living room, sitting stiffly on the couch like a guest in her own house. She stood up when I walked in. "Where did you go?" she demanded. "I needed time," I said, hanging up my jacket. "You can't shut me out," she said. "We're married." I looked at her. "Are we?" She flinched. "Don't do that." "Do what?" I asked. "Ask questions?" Her eyes filled, not with tears yet, but with frustration. "I told you the truth. That has to count for something." "You told me because you're pregnant," I said. "Not because you were sorry." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I'm going to my parents tonight," I said. Her face tightened. "Daniel's already talked to them." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm going." She reached for my arm. "Please don't make this worse." I gently pulled away. That ship sailed months ago. At my parents' house, the air felt thick with tension. My mother fussed with snacks no one touched. My father sat in his armchair, quiet, watchful. Daniel arrived last, shoulders hunched, eyes red like he hadn't slept. He stood when he saw me. "Hey." I nodded. "Hey." We sat. No one spoke for a moment. "I'm sorry," Daniel said finally. "I never meant for it to happen like this." I looked at him. "How did you mean for it to happen?" He swallowed. "We connected." Elena was unhappy. She felt alone. "And that justified it?" I asked. "No," he said quickly. "No, I know I messed up." "Messed up," I echoed. "You didn't forget to return a call. You slept with my wife." "Enough," my mother said sharply. "This isn't helping." I turned to her. "Then what is? Pretending this is a misunderstanding?" Daniel leaned forward. "I want to fix this." I laughed softly. "You already fixed it. Just not in the way you think." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done protecting you," I said. "I'm done covering for you. I'm done pretending you're the good guy." My father spoke then, his voice calm but firm. "Son, think carefully about what you're saying." "I have," I said. "More carefully than anyone else in this room." Daniel looked panicked. "What are you going to do?" I stood up. "I'm going to tell the truth." My mother gasped. "To who?" "To everyone," I said. "Friends, family, anyone who asks." "That would destroy him," she said. I met her eyes. "He helped destroy me." Silence fell again, heavier than before. "I'm not asking for your permission," I added. "I'm just letting you know. I left before anyone could stop me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how truth works, how it doesn't explode all at once, but seeps into cracks, undermining foundations quietly until everything collapses. By morning, messages had already started coming in. Friends asking if everything was okay. A cousin saying she'd heard something weird. Daniel's carefully constructed version was unraveling. And for the first time since the confession, I felt something close to balance. Not justice, not yet, but momentum. By the end of the week, everyone knew. Not because I shouted it from rooftops. Not because I blasted it online or sent some dramatic group text. I didn't need to. Truth has a way of moving on its own once it's no longer locked in a room. I answered questions honestly when they came. I didn't embellish. I didn't insult. I just stated facts. Elena was pregnant. The child wasn't mine. Daniel was the father. That was it. And somehow that simplicity did more damage than any angry outburst ever could. Daniel stopped coming to family dinners. My mother called me every other day, oscillating between guilt and anger, asking me to tone it down, even though I wasn't saying anything new. Friends who once praised Daniel's confidence now avoided his calls. A few reached out to me quietly, apologetically, admitting they'd always felt something was off but never wanted to say it. Elena, on the other hand, was unraveling. She tried to act like everything was fine at first, overly calm, almost smug. Like she still believed I'd eventually fold, like I'd come back begging, ready to accept the role she'd assigned me. "You can still be part of this baby's life," she said one evening, standing in the doorway as I packed a small bag. "I won't," I replied. She scoffed. "You're really going to walk away?" "I already did," I said, zipping the bag shut. She followed me to the car. "Daniel isn't what you think," she said, desperation slipping into her voice. "He's not stable." That almost made me laugh. "You didn't seem concerned about stability a few months ago," I said. Her face tightened. "You're punishing me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm choosing myself." I moved out that night. Not to my parents. Not to a friend's. I rented a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, but it was quiet, and it was mine. For the first time in years, I slept without feeling like I was sharing space with a stranger. A few days later, Daniel showed up unannounced. I opened the door and saw him standing there, eyes sunken, confidence drained like a battery left in the cold. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside. He paced the living room like an animal looking for an exit. "She's spiraling," he said. "She cries all the time. She's angry. She keeps saying you abandoned her." "I left," I corrected. "There's a difference." "She didn't think you'd really do it," he said. "She thought you'd calm down." I leaned against the counter. "You came here to defend her?" "No," he said quickly. "I came because I don't know what to do." There it was. The truth he'd been avoiding. "I never planned for this," he continued. "It just happened. And now everyone hates me." I looked at him. "Welcome to consequences." He winced. "You don't have to be like this." "Like what?" "Cold," he said. I shrugged. "I learned from the best." That hurt him. I could tell. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. "She's talking about divorce," he said quietly. "I already spoke to a lawyer," I replied. His head snapped up. "You did?" "Yes." "You're serious," he said, like the idea had just landed. "I've never been more serious about anything." He sank onto the couch. "What are you going to do?" I met his eyes. "Live." He laughed bitterly. "You're really just going to walk away from everything." "No," I said. "I'm walking away from you." He left shortly after that, shoulders slumped, the image of the man everyone once admired, reduced to something small and uncertain. A week later, Elena's mask finally shattered. She showed up at my apartment late one night, mascara streaked, hands shaking. "This isn't how it was supposed to go," she said. "I didn't invite her in." "You humiliated me," she accused. "You humiliated yourself," I replied. She laughed, hysterical. "Daniel's pulling away. He says the pressure is too much." I stayed silent. "You were supposed to stay," she said. "You were supposed to make this easier." "For who?" I asked. She stared at me, realization dawning too late. "For you," I said. "Not for me." She slid down against the doorframe, sobbing. I didn't think you'd be strong enough to leave. That was the cruelest part. Not the affair. Not the pregnancy. Not even the insult. It was that she genuinely believed I wouldn't choose myself. I crouched down in front of her, keeping just enough distance to be clear. You thought wrong, I said quietly. When she left, something inside me finally settled. Not healed, but aligned. Meanwhile, Daniel's world kept shrinking. Workplace rumors reached me through mutual friends. His girlfriend, before Elena had contacted him, furious that he'd cheated on her too. Patterns emerged. Stories lined up. The golden boy image cracked, then split wide open. People stopped excusing him. And my parents slowly, painfully stopped defending him. My mother called one evening, voice tired. I didn't raise him to be like this. I know, I said. But pretending won't fix it. She was quiet. I'm proud of you. That meant more than she knew. By the end of the month, the divorce papers were filed. Elena signed them without a fight. The house would be sold. Assets split cleanly. No drawn-out war. She had expected drama. What she got was distance. And distance, it turns out, is devastating when someone was counting on your presence to survive. As for me, something unexpected happened. I started breathing again. I started sleeping. I started remembering who I was before. I became the person everyone leaned on, but no one protected. And while everyone else scrambled to fix the mess they created, I was quietly building something new, something solid, something that didn't include lies. 6 months after the night I walked out without a word, my life no longer looked like the wreckage everyone expected it to be. It was quieter, smaller, cleaner, and for the first time in years it felt honest. The divorce finalized without fireworks. No courtroom drama, no screaming matches, just signatures, paperwork, and the closing of a chapter that had already burned itself out long before the ink dried. The house sold faster than expected. I let Elena keep most of the furniture. I didn't want reminders. I didn't want ghosts. What surprised people was how little I asked for. They mistook that for weakness. They were wrong. I'd learned something important during those months of silence. When people expect you to fight dirty, calm restraint feels like dominance. When they expect you to beg, walking away feels like power. Elena tried to reach out one last time after the papers were finalized. A long message, carefully written. Apologetic, but not enough. Regretful, but still self-centered. She wrote about fear, about confusion, about how everything got out of control. She never wrote, I betrayed you. I didn't reply. Daniel's life, on the other hand, had become a slow-motion collapse. He moved out of his apartment and into a smaller place closer to work. The promotion he'd been eyeing quietly disappeared. No explanation. Just a polite email thanking him for his continued effort. Mutual friends stopped inviting him places. Conversations went awkward when he entered a room. Not because I poisoned anyone against him. Because once the truth is known, people start revisiting old memories, and suddenly, the charm looks different. The baby was born in early spring. I heard about it from my mother. A boy, she said softly over the phone. He's healthy. That's good, I replied, and I meant it. There was a pause. Daniel was supposed to be there, she added. He showed up late. Elena was upset. I didn't ask follow-up questions, but I heard enough through the family grapevine to understand what had happened. Daniel hadn't stepped up the way Elena expected. The pressure that once thrilled him, the secrecy, the risk, the validation, had evaporated. What remained was responsibility, sleepless nights. Dr. Bills, a crying infant who didn't care about his charm or confidence. Reality doesn't applaud, it demands. Elena moved back in with her parents. Daniel started figuring things out. Funny how those words sound so different when you're no longer the one cleaning up after them. As for me, I rebuilt quietly. I threw myself into work, not to escape, but to create. I took on projects I'd once hesitated to accept. I traveled for the first time in years. I reconnected with old friends I'd neglected without realizing it. One night after a long day, I caught my reflection in a darkened window and barely recognized the man staring back. Not because he looked broken, because he looked lighter. The final reckoning came when I least expected it. It was my father's birthday, a small family dinner, nothing dramatic. I debated skipping it, but my mother asked me to come, her voice careful, hopeful. Daniel was there when I arrived. He stood up awkwardly, unsure whether to hug me or avoid eye contact. He chose neither. We sat across from each other at the table like strangers who shared a last name. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he said. The table went quiet. "I've watched this family fracture," he continued, "and I've watched one son take responsibility and another avoid it." Daniel stiffened. "This isn't about punishment," my father said. "It's about accountability." He turned to me. "You handled this with more dignity than I would have at your age." That was it. No yelling. No accusations, just truth, spoken plainly. Daniel's eyes dropped to his plate. After dinner, he approached me outside. "I owe you an apology," he said. I waited. "I betrayed you," he said finally, "not just as a husband, but as a brother." I studied his face. He looked older, worn down, smaller than I remembered. "I forgive you," I said. His head snapped up. "You do?" "Yes," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean access." The words landed hard. "I'm not angry anymore," I continued. "I'm just done." He nodded slowly, like someone accepting a verdict they'd known was coming. We haven't spoken since, and that's okay. A year after the confession, I ran into Elena at a grocery store. She looked tired. Not ruined, not destroyed, just real. The fantasy she'd chased had burned away, leaving consequences in its place. She hesitated when she saw me, then approached. "You look good," she said quietly. "So do you," I replied politely. "I was wrong about you," she said. I waited. "I thought you were weak," she admitted. "I thought you'd stay no matter what." I met her eyes. "That was your mistake." She nodded, swallowing hard. "I hope you're happy." "I am," I said. And for the first time, that word felt solid in my mouth. As I walked away, I realized something important. Revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it's simply becoming the person they never thought you had the courage to be. I didn't raise my brother's child. I didn't beg my wife to stay. I didn't explode or fall apart. I walked away. And in doing so, I took back everything they thought they'd taken from me.